I think that this production does a very good job of walking the line between traditional theater production and not changing too much, but also giving you an experience you wouldn't be able to find on Broadway, and using the difference in medium to its advantage to create a new experience. Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Off Book, a brand new podcast where we talk about Broadway, movies, TV shows, and anything else we feel like geeking out about. I'm Marc Stoufer III.
And I'm Szurna, and today we're going to talk about the Disney Plus version of Hamilton.
Or the HamilFilm.
Yeah, the HamilFilm. We've both watched it after a whole lot of waiting for it, and we both really like it.
Yeah, I think it just does a good job of this guy had a really long life, and Lin-Manuel Miranda managed to compress it into 2.5 hours of show, and that's impressive. That's what a feat.
Oh, for sure. And how it's completely based off this biography that was just written. The fact that Lin could actually take that book and translate it into a musical is absolutely insane.
Oh yeah, he had incredible insight to see this biography about a founding father that largely didn't seem that exciting, and then say, hey, you know what this could be? This could be a hip hop musical. And everyone thought he's admitted himself, it's a terrible, terrible elevator pitch, but it somehow worked because Broadway is awesome.
Yeah, true. And he comes out with downright some of the best music out there. So no doubt he would have made it into an amazing musical, which he did. And I don't know, he is amazing, and I love Lin.
Yeah, I think that the lyrical complexity of it, this isn't or rhymes with poor rhymes with lore and ta-da. He's taking years to write individual songs, and you can see that craftsmanship come through with every number that goes into the show. And even listening to some of the pieces that he cut from the show are better than anything I could have written in 20 years. And just how good of a writer he is to be able to give it that kind of scrutiny.
Yeah, and a few years back, I actually read the book. I read the book 3 times, and it's amazing to see how some of the stuff within the book, actual sentences that were in the book, are also in the musical in the songs, which is insane. And I could never be able to do that.
But he really knows the history, but he also knows a lot of pop culture stuff. There's so many references to other musicals, to hip hop and rap albums that inspired him. He really gives you this feeling that even though it's technically a historical piece, it feels like it's timeless because of how many different eras it references. No matter what you're into, you're going to find something in there that you recognize, either consciously or subconsciously.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just, the reference, Macbeth, it's I don't know, the way he composed all of this is just absolutely insane and amazing. I love that man.
Well, and I think that the composition really started them at a certain point. So the performances of the cast, the cast is just incredible, taking this writing and bringing it to a whole new level with their performances, and both verbal and non-verbal. Having watched it for the first time a couple of weeks ago, it really gives a whole new level to the writing. It's not just the music, and also there are some people on stage. There are the complexities of their performances. Even Aaron Burr, who we know from the start is the villain of the show, you can see this real personality to. He's a very complex character. And Leslie Odom Jr., along with the rest of the cast, does an amazing job of bringing these stuffy white guys from 1776 to life for an audience that wouldn't necessarily find those original people interesting.
Yeah, and one thing that I really love about Hamilton is Lin cast not just a bunch of white people, Right. And especially in a show like this, where back then it was predominantly a white country. And I love that he just chose the people that normally wouldn't have been chosen for a show like this to help bring in more audience, to show them that there can also be people within their race that can do this stuff,
Yeah, and I think not only is he showing the people of any race that they are able to help contribute to history no matter who you are, but I think it's also, part of it has to do with the fact that he cast who sings this kind of music. He cast the people that were the right people for the show, and that comes through in the performance, it comes through in the costume design. Mulligan wears a beanie during Act 1, and I have to assume, I don't know, but I have to assume those didn't exist in 1776. But I think just another layer to that modernization of the American history that no one really wanted to learn about, but now everyone is learning about without even realizing it.
Yeah, exactly. That cast was absolutely cast perfect. I couldn't think of another person that would be in the show that would be a better person for it. It was cast perfectly.
And as an actor, I really noticed it's not just the main cast. I mean, everyone always talks about the main characters, but if you watch the ensemble, if you watch the actress who plays the bullet throughout the show, they're very trained and talented as far as dancing, and they're hoisting themselves up on the balconies of that set and hanging and jumping, but they each have their own character that brings this to life. It isn't watching a whole bunch of actors in colonial garb walking around. These are actual people bringing to life people that existed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, while watching the musical, and I would look at the ensemble because I've seen the musical twice live now, and so I'm used to looking at the main people, focusing on them. But throughout this movie, I tried to focus more on the in the ensemble to just get a glimpse of what they were doing. And during the cabinet battles where they were up close, you could see even the ensemble is still doing a bunch of facial reactions and stuff like that, and they're still in character even though you can't really see them that well.
Well, now we have to take a break to hear from our sponsor. If you're anything like me, you'll do anything to work your way up the political ladder, whether that means begging the general to let you fight in the revolution, switching political parties, or even murdering the Secretary of the Treasury.
Wait, that's illegal.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's why today's sponsor, Clearing Your Conscience Attorneys, is just perfect. With over 2 people working at the very minimum to help you get not prosecuted, you can rest easy knowing that you'll be able to flee to Mexico with a boatload of stolen money and live a brand new life. So the next time you shoot a Treasury Secretary, call Clearing Your Conscience Attorneys. And now, back to the main program. I think on the subject of details, I think that's part of what makes it being available on a streaming service like Disney Plus. I was just watching it yesterday, and I kept noticing all these things that I hadn't noticed in any other viewing, because it's such a layered show. I mean, they very obviously paid attention to every single aspect, whether it was the lighting or the set, with the costumes, or the ensemble. Every single thing got so much attention that you can watch it a lot of times and notice a whole layer of new things each time you watch it.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that really made the show just unique and amazing is both live performances I saw and the film, King George was acting different almost every single time.
Yeah.
He would do things that the cast weren't expecting, and just it helped bring a lot of character to the show, and he just added his own little touch to make it oh my gosh, what, he just did that,
Yeah. Well, and I was reading an interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda. He said there was a portion of one of the songs, and in the vocal line, whoa, 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 was inspired by the dial-up sound that computers had. And I think that it's that inspiration. He obviously got inspiration from everywhere. And the fact that he turned a dial-up sound into a vocal line is baffling to me. I don't know how you do that, but that's interesting.
Yeah, he is actually the best. But another difference between the live films and this film is, I don't know how they did it in New York because I never saw it in New York, but at the end when Lynn walked Eliza up to the front of the stage and showed her the audience, and she gasped and got tears in her eyes, that wasn't in any of the live shows, so I myself was not expecting that, and it just kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, that gasp specifically has been the subject of a lot of Twitter debates. Lin-Manuel Miranda said that it isn't him playing himself in this instance, because that wouldn't work for the other actors playing Hamilton, but that it was supposed to remain kind of ambiguous. This is something that can be left open to interpretation. So some people have stated that it's her dying and seeing the impact of her legacy. Some have said that it's her seeing the show itself. Some of the theories say that it's her seeing Alexander in the afterlife and finally getting to rejoin. But I think that that's one of the things, is that for all the details they put in the show, there's also so much that's left up to the viewer. you get to kind of create your own story, your own interpretation of it. So my viewing isn't necessarily going to be the same as your viewing, and I think that the show can do that, instantly create a richer experience for everybody watching them.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I absolutely love about this show, because there are some things where you can interpret that aren't automatically, direct.
Mm-hmm. Something else I wanted to mention is the there's an interlude that isn't on the cast album where we see John Lawrence die. More there'll be more of us, and I read the lyrics to that, and I'd seen it when I saw the show live. But I think there was something about the way that scene was staged that everything just seemed perfect for that. It didn't seem like, well, we have to have a death sequence, and this is kind of how we can do it. That seemed like it was written to be performed that way, and that was just the ultimate way to portray that.
Yeah, and it also showed kind of the connection that Hamilton had with John Lawrence, and showed that they were friends and they worked side by side, and grieving someone is just so upsetting sometimes, and finding out that kind of news is upsetting, and it's cool to see that, because in a lot of things they wouldn't portray that.
And I think Lin-Manuel Miranda had said that Hamilton's response to hearing that Lawrence had died was,
I have so much work to do.
And he pointed out that for somebody like Hamilton, who never stops moving, the fact that it was such a long silence and then that one simple piece shows more than him saying or doing anything. Because I think that for someone like Hamilton, silence means more than an 8-page essay would.
Yeah, I read a book of a bunch of letters he had written, and a lot of them was to John Lawrence and Angelica and Eliza and just stuff like that. And when I would read about John Lawrence, it seemed that him and Lawrence had such a connection that was just different from any other person within that time. And it's really cool to see that being portrayed live.
They didn't choose to gloss over it in order to make him a member of the gang of friends.
Mm-hmm.
They simultaneously put him in that gang of friends, but also give him his own subplot there that highlights the connection they had. Whatever that was, we don't even really know exactly what that meant, but we know it was something. And now the time has come for us to reveal any drawbacks we found. I thought it was a pretty good show. I've heard a lot of people criticizing the cinematography, thinking that they moved the camera around too much, that there were too many close-ups. Did you feel anything like that?
Honestly, no. I actually kind of liked the close-ups, because it felt like you were in the space, you were in the room. And yeah, some people may not like that, but I personally like that. It just gives a different feel to how you would be seeing it live, And
I think that for me, I have to agree with you. The cinematography helps to put you in a situation that makes you feel like you're almost on a stage, because they have the overhead shots. They have the shots. They actually had to cut out part of the back wall of the set in order to put a camera from behind facing the audience. And that's not something you get to see live. So even if you've seen it live, as both of us have, you still get to experience it in a new way that makes you, at times, feel like you're right there in the middle of them, and at times make you feel like you're removed, which can really add to the visual subtext of those scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it was kind of there was a part, it was during You'll Be Back, and he was just the camera was super close to Jonathan's face, and it was kind of awkward, but I mean, he was the king, and they wanted you to be in his face and showing how angry he actually was.
And I think that another thing is that this film wasn't supposed to be released as early as it was. It was supposed to be released in theaters several months from now, at least, I think. So I think that part of that might just be they didn't have as much time to edit or pick and choose what they wanted to do, because they had to. I don't know how far along they were when they decided to release it on Disney Plus, but that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, I definitely like how it was released onto Disney Plus, so then we didn't have to it wasn't a race for whoever can get it first, It was an overall, here it is, and that's what I really liked about it being there on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I think that releasing musicals on a streaming service like Disney Plus helps to make theater more accessible to wouldn't normally have it. And I think that it opens the door for a lot of theater companies that can see, oh, this actually does work. And there's a rumor that Disney's Aladdin is going to come to Disney Plus at some point. It sounds like that had already been in the works to have some sort of release before this happened, and then it was delayed in favor of Hamilton. So who knows what this means for the future of musicals in a non-traditional theater setting, which I think right now in the midst of a pandemic is something that is good to try to help get new people into theater, and also help get the people that are already into theater, help them to find new ways to continue to experience it, even if they can't be in an actual theater.
Yeah, exactly. So like overall, I definitely think that this musical, like this adaptation of a musical, is probably like one of the best that I've seen out of a movie musical, because there are some musicals that are translated into a full movie and they aren't the actual musical, and it's just it's a little different. But with this, it was Hamilton, you know. There weren't songs that were cut, there weren't songs that were added, which can happen with musicals sometimes, and that's what I absolutely love about it.
Yeah, I think that this production does a very good job of walking the line between traditional theater production and not changing too much, but also giving you an experience you wouldn't be able to find on Broadway, and using the difference in medium to its advantage to create a new experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that wraps up our time for this week. Thanks so much for joining us.
Make sure you tune into next week so we can talk about live musicals on TV. Don't worry, you'll be back.